Hi, everybody. Welcome. I did decide that we should just sit on the sides of our pictures to make sure that it was all straight. Each of us are. But my name is Celeste Hubbard-Breen. As mentioned, I'm the president of Hecho Studios. If you haven't heard of Hecho Studios, we are a member of the 72 and 7 family. You probably haven't heard about them at all this week. So I'm also a member of the Stagwell Network. So I am happily one of the leaders of our studio, in which we really focus on sport and branded content. And that's exactly what we're going to talk to you all about today. I have the pleasure of being here with Miss Keisha Wright. And Keisha, one thing I just love to start, I'd really love to understand how people have gotten to where they are today. We'll get into what you're doing at THINK450 and what that's all about, but how did you get here?
It's a very long story, so I'll make it short. My career has been like a game of Plinko, for lack of a better analogy. I started my undergrad, well, I finished my undergrad at Stanford University. When I got to Stanford, I thought I would be a doctor, so I was pre-med. Despite the fact that I absolutely hate chemistry, I hate needles, I hate blood, I don't know what I was thinking. I loved kids and I wanted to work with kids. I was being a pediatrician. I graduated from Stanford. I worked in education for about 10 years. And when I worked in education, I developed a media literacy curriculum. And that's when I started really loving media and entertainment. So I grew up in LA. I now live in Brooklyn. When I moved to New York, I said, I'm going to transition my career to entertainment and sports. I didn't play any sports. I did play on Boy to Play. I made my middle school basketball team, but I never. So I started working at Nickelodeon in the consumer insights group, and I have a passion for insights, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then I went from Nickelodeon to Teen People. I love youth culture, and then from Teen People to the NBA, from the NBA to the Nets, and from the Nets now to the PA. So I worked with all sides of basketball. So that's crazy.
That's been an amazing career, and I did not attend Stanford University, but if I could do it all over, I'm sure I would try, and I'm sure they would think twice. So tell us a little bit about THINK450 and what you all do. We had the opportunity to meet one another about 2 months ago. Thank you, Damien. It feels like we've become fast friends, and I love when my clients become friends. So for me, hearing about THINK450 was a new entity and aspect of the NBA, and it's just a really massive opportunity to tell stories with some of your players. So tell me about what that process is like.
So THINK450 is a really nascent organization. It is the partnership and innovation engine of the National Basketball Players Association, the NBPA. We were started in 2017 with the most recent collective bargaining agreement, when the players took back the rights to their collective name, image, and likeness. And so THINK450 exists to help them manage and maximize those rights through licensing, that's product licensing, through grassroots basketball activities. And then my group is the branded content, well, I don't like to call it that, but partnerships through content and experiential activation. We create content mainly in 2 buckets. So the first is more long-form storytelling, where we partner with players to tell stories of transition. We currently have a doc, the Vince Carter doc, which is on Crackle. We also have Casal doc on Amazon. And then my team, we create more short-form content where we're pairing players with brands and creating experiences.
And we're going to talk a little bit later about what it takes or what one should expect as a brand when working with THINK450. But there is this nuance, you are a part of the NBA Players Association, which is therefore attached to the NBA. But I'd love to hear from you what it means, so some of the benefits of specifically working with THINK450 versus broader partnerships with the NBA.
A lot of people, even sometimes NBA partners, get a little bit confused about the difference between working with the PA and working with the NBA. So when you work with the NBA, you of course get access to logo man and all of the team IP, and that includes all of their events. When you work with us, you get access to the players to either activate on an individual or group basis. And so since it is sort of a player's league, the players are the storyline. A lot of people say, what's the league for scale? And they definitely provide scale. You can work with the teams to get that local relevance, and you can work with players to get storytelling. I think you can work with players to get all of those things. Our players have reached more than 600 consumers collectively across social. Because they work in different team markets, you can get that local relevance, and of course, the storytelling.
I think the storytelling is, of course, what really allows for deeper engagement with our audiences, especially as fans of these individual players. Everyone's a fan typically of teams. You have a favorite team generally, but I think we all have our favorite players. So as a brand, when you get to intimately, work with them to develop a message that's also authentic to them, it creates those deeper connections. And I know we're really excited to be a partner with you in developing those stories and those content, some of which are coming soon. But we do have some work that we can show with everyone from the reel. Anything to set it up? So we saw some really great examples of the brands that you've worked with in the past, and we'll dig into some of those case studies for sure. But before we do that, I'd love to better understand the nature of how you work with the players. I believe you call it the 2312 effect.
That's part of it. Okay. So we have 3 principles that guide the work that we do with our players and our partners. The first one is literally our name, THINK450. So we think really holistically about all 450 players that are in the league. Hopefully people got that. 30 teams, 15 players on a roster, 450 players. Simple math, so that was good at. So we think, a brand might come to us and they typically, I think someone said today, athletes are really oversaturated. I think it's only a few that you see all the time. And so brands will come to us and they'll say, we want to work with player X, Y, Z. And we say, well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about why you want to work with that player? Like, give us a profile of a player that you want to work with. Because with our legendary intelligence video said, we might be able to come back to you with 10 additional players who might have an audience that has a stronger affinity for whatever the topic is, might have deeper engagement, and we'll give you choices because we know all 450 really well. And that leads me to the second principle, and it's all about player intelligence. So we're constantly growing our database of player intelligence. And so we do that through a couple of different touch points. So our player engagement team, they're embedded with our players. They go to the team meetings. When we were in the bubble, our player engagement team was in the bubble for 3 months, or however long that was. And then our media team, they use media days to ask very specific questions of guys on an individual basis. So we get to understand what they're thinking individually, whereas player engagement gets to understand things more broadly. And then we have a survey called the 450 IP. It's our insights profile, 7-question proprietary survey, and we ask all players to fill that out when they're coming in, usually when they're rookies. And then we have our foundation, so that's on the PA side. And our foundation has tons of information about what players are interested in investing on a from a community point of view. So we use all of that intelligence, and when a brand comes to us and gives us a profile of a player we want to work with, we kind of scrape, we have a CRM system, and we do our research and provide you back with 10 players, for example, that you can choose from. So that's THINK450, thinking holistically, leading with insights, and then the third, the 2312 effect. So the 2312 effect is, we like to say, there's 48 minutes on the court. Our players only have 23 hours and 12 minutes of other things that they do. And that provides really, really fertile ground for really rich storytelling because of all their various passions. And so we use those 3 sort of principles to inform our entire approach to partnership, which we call brand allyship. And so with brand allyship, we try and base all partnerships on some point of connection with a brand. And so we look at a shared value, a shared mission, a shared belief, a shared affinity, and then we use that as a foundation for partnership. And we try and flip sort of the traditional model of sports marketing, whereas, and I think a lot of the speakers have been talking about this, where you kind of have to relinquish a little control. You come to us and consider us as your business creative agency and partner. Bring us a challenge, and don't necessarily bring us a message that you want our players to say. Don't tell us where you want the logo to be, but let us go to our guys and say, here's something where you share a point of connection. What would you want to do with it? And we challenge the brands to use their resources, their distribution channels, to amplify the player's voice, rather than having the players sort of pair back the brand message. Let's create a new message together that's really authentic to the player and authentic to their community.
Yeah, you touched on so many, I think, brilliant aspects in terms of how you engage with the brands and make the connection with the players more deeply, more intentionally. Right? And I love that you guys are doing that from the get-go with the players too, and you can evolve and grow with them as their interests evolve and grow. And then the other thing, y'all are very familiar with what was the bubble. If you recall, it was not very easy to get into the bubble. But you guys had some folks in there, and you were able to engage with the players on the ground during what was for everyone an extremely tumultuous few months and years and more. So there was quite a few projects that came out of that time for you all, and ones that were specifically developed on insights that you found with the players at that time. Can you share a little bit about the one with Michelob Ultra?
So this is where I think when we started thinking about brand allyship, so the guys decided when they were going to return to play that they wanted to use the opportunity to really promote and advance the fight for social justice and racial equality. And so Michelob Ultra, who's a partner of the NBA, a partner of the NBPA, came to us and said, how can we support the guys in what they want to do? And this is such a simple and elegant example of brand allyship. And we said, well, you guys have this asset, this nationally televised courtside signage, and our guys really want to get out the vote. This is the most important thing they think that people can do is to change the structures that govern us. And so what if we use your courtside signage to amplify their voice? And if you'll recall, Michelob Ultra had courtside signage that just said vote. And that is, they had an asset, they lent it to our guys, and they amplified their voices. So that's one example, and it's simple and elegant. There was another partner that we worked with in the bubble, Dubman Plus Care. They came to us after the murder of George Floyd, and they said they had an idea for something that they wanted to do. And we listened and said, we know it's on the mind of our guys, and what they really want to do is to affect long-term change. And the idea that Dub had was a great idea, but it was sort of a little bit more short-term. And so we shared some insights that we had about what our guys were thinking about. And together we came up with this Commit to Care Now, Commit to Care about Racial Equity Now. And it was all about the shared point of connection that we identified was, Dubman Plus Care is all about showing the way that men care. And our guys care very passionately about a lot of things. They care about their families, their spouses, their communities. And so how can we tell stories that show all of the ways that these Black men care and care deeply about things in order to change the way that the world perceives them, and then hopefully change the way that the world treats them as a result. And so we had set up a studio in the bubble, thinking that guys would want to film content. They were going to be there sequestered forever. And so we set up a studio, not knowing that we were going to use it this way. So we had a shooter on the ground, and we drafted 11 guys. One of them was Chris Paul, our president at the time. And we just did these straight to camera, unscripted interviews. They're black and white, they're very beautiful. And we just had the guys talk about all the things they care about. And then we used that content across all of those channels. So we created a microsite together where we asked people to take a pledge to commit to care about racial equity. They could sign a petition about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We created short form social across all of the guys' 11 channels. We created a national 30-second TVC. So another really good example of brand allyship where Dove had all these channels, they had all of this media and all of these resources, but they amplified our players' message through that point of connection. So that's also a really good example coming out of the bubble. And then can I share a more recent, or we should share just that before we share the Dove spot. We'll share it first and then I'll share the results. They were really strong.
There's a lot of stereotypes around Black men created by false media narratives.
They're shown as thugs, gangsters.
It's an unfair judgment.
Black men care about Black women.
Black men care about their families. Black men care about this world.
Dove Men Plus Care and the NBPA are partnering to change the way the world sees and treats Black men. Join us at committocarenow.com.
That work won several awards, so very proud of that. We had over 100,000 visits to the website of people taking the pledge. Right after the campaign, it's I think a year ago now, we had over 3 million views of all the videos, so it did really well. 100% positive image unheard of, I think. So really proud of that work. And then finally, a more recent example, we've been working with, we just finished a campaign with Champion Athletic Wear. And they came to us with a very broad sort of challenge. They have their Be Your Own Champion messaging. And for them, Be Your Own Champion is more than about winning a trophy. It's about playing with integrity, playing for the love of the game, and inspiring others. And so they said, how can we sort of tell that story through the voice of the player? And we know from our guys, they love to give back to the communities that raised them. And there's these community champions. I know now because I'm a mom of an AU kid, my son. And travel a lot. There's our spots that we go to. There, he'll go. He forgot his Gatorade. He'll go to that bodega or whatever, and they'll give it to him, and I pay later. And there's all these people in the community who support that journey. And so, how can we tell that story? So we ended up working with James Wiseman, who plays for the Kings, and the Warriors. And we went to Nashville, and we interviewed his middle school coach, his high school coach, and his sister. And they told the story about all the things that they knew about James and how they had supported him on his journey to the NBA. And then we went and shot him up in San Francisco, talking about how they had supported him. We brought an artist from Memphis with us to both Nashville to Memphis, and then we also brought that artist to San Francisco, and that artist turned James' story into a mural, which then became a capsule collection that Champion put out in November. And then as a sort of full circle moment, that capsule collection then informed a community grant program where we gave 5 grants of $10,000 each to community champions that had been nominated by fans. So that's another example of, the player told his story. He sort of amplified and celebrated his community, and then we were able to give back to community again.
One thing in particular that I'm hearing also is just the varying channels and ways that you can bring these opportunities to life, to tell these stories, to highlight various initiatives, and to allow opportunity for players and grants to operate in the same space of similar values. So anything from murals or capsule collections, TVC, all of the above. And, speaking of media channels, we all know content is king. We're all absorbing it 24 hours a day almost. But we've been talking about metaverse. Have you guys heard about that? Metaverse, it's the future. But some of us are still, we're trying to figure out what's going on right now. And I know all of y'all have figured out TikTok. So I'd love to hear maybe some examples of work you've done in the TikTok space. Feel free to take out your notepads.
Or don't, because I don't always get it either. We like I said, we're a recent organization, and although we love TikTok, and I'm definitely not the TikTok era, I'm trying to get in there. But we did our first TikTok campaign last August. We worked with QuickBooks. I think there was a clip in our video, and they had a small business challenge, and we did a We drafted 11 guides again to support their small business challenge. We called it Back Small Biz. And 11 guys posted about their 4 favorite small businesses. 2 of the guys, Trey Young and Kyle Kuzma, are they are big on TikTok. They have, I think, collectively 1.5 million followers. And so TikTok used them as influencers to support their branded hashtag challenge. They have branded filter. And that their videos, I think they got 500,000 views, but the overall campaign that QuickBooks did, I think, generated over 1 million user videos of doing that challenge. See, I don't even know the terminology. But because of that, we have decided, and one of the things that we are constantly looking for is alternate distribution channels, because we typically rely on our guys' social media. We'll put paid behind it. But now we're thinking about how can we partner with TikTok to continue to use these branded hashtag challenges as a way to extend the distribution that we do that.
And so we all know we have to exist in content world, virtually, socially, but it doesn't leave real life out of the opportunity. What are you guys doing to maybe be hybrid or to, again, continue to reach people on the most intimate levels possible?
So I think I've heard it here several times today. I think I heard it yesterday. I think Fernando said your brand can't exist in one lane. You have to exist in multiple lanes. And even though we're a new brand, the PA was very much not a consumer-facing brand 2 years ago. It was just for the players. But now we've become a more consumer-facing brand. And so I think someone else said you have to show up in unexpected ways. And so this past November, we launched something called NBPA 450 Gigs. And we took over a digital double-decker bus in New York City, one of those great tour guide buses. We totally wrapped it, and we created 14 days of content for the digital screen. And every day for 14 days, we stopped at a new location throughout New York City, and we revealed a new gift that fans could win that was either curated by one of our players or one of our partners. And so we had the opportunity to play 2K with Josh Giddey, meet and greet with Mikhail Walker-Alexander. Jaylen Brown has his juice collection. He gave away a full closet full of apparel. And so we had all these fun things. Our partners were Mountain Dew, Black and Bold, who was an NBA partner. They sampled coffee. So at the top of the bus, we had a DJ booth and sampling bar. We had we gave away sweets from Black-owned companies, and everywhere we pulled up, we had a party. When we were outside of the Apollo Theater, the bus was literally rocking. The fans doing the wobble. It was such a good time. And so over the course of the 14 days, we connected with more than 2,000 people live, but then we extended that reach through the content that we posted on social and digital channels. So that's one way that we're trying to show up in multiple lanes. And we continue to do that. We're launching tentpoles. We'll have our next live tentpole in Las Vegas, and it's called PlayerCon. It's basically our version of ComplexCon, but all collaborations with our players and fashion brands around sneakers, NFTs, entertainment. And so I think the way that we're approaching events is, I talked about scale earlier. We kind of want to have a more curated experience where you feel lucky if you get to come to one of our events. So we're not going to be selling tickets. It's going to be a drop. And if you're lucky enough to get one of those tickets, you'll experience a very curated event.
Okay, so I need to know what the drops are. And second of all, I just love to hear where you think the future of branded content is and what that space looks like specific to THINK450.
So the metaverse for sure. Well, first of all, I think we'll continue to be hybrid. We know that millennials and Gen Z love experiences, so we want to continue to create experiences for them to come together. But we also want to make those give them access digitally, because that extends the reach, especially when we're going to have curated sort of smallish events. I think we definitely are exploring the metaverse. So last year, during our players' summer meeting, we played around with a virtual reality gifting suite where our players could shop different brand partners and then get that merch shipped directly to them. And that received really good feedback from our players and our members. So I think we're thinking about ways to extend that for consumers as well. And I think PlayerCon will have some sort of metaverse extension or experience associated with it. And then NFTs. I don't know if you guys saw what Coachella did with their NFT tickets. Did you see this? They have 10 keys If you're lucky enough to bid on one of these 10 keys, you get a trailer for 10 friends with a chef.
That's,
So I think
that's how I do.
that's how you roll. Yeah, I wish. So I think we're looking at exploring something like that with our player con ticketing strategy. And are there tickets that get you like really super exclusive access and an experience that you can't have any other way? So like everybody else, we're trying to figure out metaverse and keys and all those things.
And so many of us are here this week, leading into the weekend for mostly brand innovators, but there's a football game going on as well. But you have a pretty intense and large event of your own coming up next week, the NBA All-Star game. Anything we should look forward to that you may be activating, or how are you guys approaching it this year?
So we had, I think I mentioned that we were launching our own events this year. So we have 3 that we're launching. PlayerCon, which I talked about, will happen in July in Vegas. 450 Gives is our holiday event. And we had planned to launch the Players House, which gives fans an opportunity to basically live a day in the life of a player. We decided to not launch Players House in Cleveland, just due to COVID. We didn't want to launch a tentpole event in an unknown sort of atmosphere. So look for that next year in Indianapolis. The Players House will come to life. But we are welcoming and having a really nice welcome dinner for our new executive director Tamika. Our executive committee will come together and then we'll have a reception. So we're going to keep it small and safe in Cleveland, but I will be there. So I hope to see some of you guys as well. If you're there, let me know.
I just imagine the Players House for me to step into the view of an NBA player. Am I going to have platform? You know, something that gets me on my 7 foot. Exactly. Well, okay, just to wrap it up, for all of you out there that are curious and wondering how best to engage with THINK450, what advice would you give them?
Good question. And I think I'll sort of echo the things that we've heard from other speakers this weekend or this week. I think you need to we do our best work when you bring a business challenge rather than a fully baked campaign. It doesn't work as well with insert player X here. It works better when we build together. I think Adrienne from Google said that. She said, we don't want, your idea to be a reveal. We want to build it with you. And you should consider THINK450 and our guys as your creative agency. And working with content partners like Hecho, we can totally be that creative agency and come up with a solution together with you. We have a great example of that. We can't share the brand, but we have a prospective partner, who came to us with a business challenge. They have a product linked to the game that is somewhat controversial. And so they want to know how can we talk about this product, get people excited about this product without talking about that controversial part of this product. And I'll leave you to guess what it could be. And so we got on a phone call with the Hecho team, and we brought some player insights to them, and using those player insights, they came back to us with some amazing ideas that we shared with the client, and the client is very excited about this new way to tell the story about this product that they have. So that's where we do our best work, like bring us a business challenge. And I think, again, to quote Fernando, he said, you have to be, well, I'm going to paraphrase, be comfortable with discomfort. If you're going to relinquish the reins of your brand a little bit, you have to be flexible, you have to be comfortable with discomfort. And so I say we do our best work in that space as well. Sometimes we have conversations with brands, and when we share insights, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And it's okay if you don't know something, that's what we're here for. And I think those are good things, be comfortable, be flexible, and be curious.
I'd love to hear from your perspective. You're talking a lot about community work, and obviously all the college kids are looking up the players, and March Madness being around the corner. There's a lot of questions about what's going to happen with, what they're able to do and what not. But I'd love to hear, if you guys are setting the standard for all the players, how you're talking to the younger generation and inspiring them and sort of linking it. I know there's a lot of questions and uncertainty as well, and opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. As I said, I have a young athlete at home and trying to build up Instagram so we can take advantage of this. What I will say,
Scholarships now.
yeah, what I will say, you know, it's very different. You know, our guys have a union that represents them, and our mission is to protect, support, and amplify. The college kids don't necessarily have that, and so I think the best way, this is just my own personal advice, is to do things you're passionate about, and to work with companies that you feel good about, because I feel like right now with the college NIL, it's the wild, wild west, and in order to stay safe is just to do things that are authentic to you. And I feel like that's where guys see the best value, and where they're able to amplify their voices and the things that they're most passionate about. And because the kids don't necessarily have a union, that they should be sure stay safe by doing things that they are passionate about, and not just jumping at every opportunity because it knocks on your door.
And how has open doors and some of those,
I'm
partnership
glad.
with
Yeah.
them last year, so I'd love to hear like what that drove for a lot of the players.
Yeah, we worked with Open Doors. I think one of the biggest benefits for us working with Open Doors is just the player intel. Like I said, we like to lead with insights, and so knowing what our players' audiences are most passionate about, the brands that they're most passionate about, helps us align those affinities. And so I really like Open Doors, and I think if some of the college kids are signing up with Open Doors, or even the colleges themselves are working with Open Doors. Does everybody know what Open Doors is? Okay, then I think that's definitely a great way to go. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was a partnership that I really appreciate.
Keisha, can you talk to us a little bit about how THINK450 is partnering with the WNBA, if at all?
Yes, so we definitely partner with the WNBA. We will have partners that come to us and say that they want to involve a WNBA player in a campaign that we're working on. So, for example, with the 450 Gives campaign, one of our partners, Merrill, wanted to work with a WNBA player in addition to having an NBA player create content for them. And so, although we don't represent the WNBA players, we have a close relationship with them. And so we'll reach out to their PA and ask them, similar to the way that we look for our players, you know, here's the profile of player that we're looking for. Is there someone that you would recommend we work with? We also worked with the W for Mountain Dew. We created some content for them last year around playoffs and All-Star, and they wanted to do that campaign with the W as well. And so we were able to work with our counterparts at the WNBA to bring the WNBA players into our content as well. So we do work with them closely.
All right, well, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining us.